What's going on, everybody? It's Chris from ProPhoto, and this is Geared Up. This is our weekly live broadcast where we talk about lighting techniques, gear, photography, whatever kind of fun stuff that you want to talk about, hopefully pertaining to lighting. That's what we're talking about here. If you're watching this on ProPhoto.com, you're probably going to see some stuff popping up around the edges, like when I talk about softbox, for example, I might say the 2-foot click octa. You'll probably see a 2-foot click octa pop up there. You can click on that. You can get more information if you want that information. If you don't click it. If you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, it's not going to do that. If you want that experience, head over to ProPhoto.com and watch us. If you don't care, hang out with us right now. So let's jump into what we are talking about today. Today is all about how to choose the right size softboxes. Softboxes are probably one of the most widely used light shaping tools in photography. It's definitely one of the most popular, mainly because of the light that it produces is a relatively safe light. It's really beautiful light. It's almost hard to mess up the light coming out of a softbox, which is, probably, again, one of the reasons that makes it so popular amongst people, especially people just getting into lighting. Anytime someone's getting into lighting with me, I generally tend to either steer them towards a large umbrella or a softbox, again, just so that the results that you're getting are, the good results that you're getting are relatively quick, again, because of how easy they are. So let's dive into how do you even pick a softbox. I mean, you see different sizes, you see different shapes, and let's just talk about the things that you need to be thinking about whenever it comes down to deciding what size softbox that you might want to use. So let's jump into size first, because I think that's one of the things that most people struggle with trying to figure out, do I need a 5-foot octa? Do I need a 2-foot octa? Let's talk about that right now. So you need to first think about kind of how you like to shoot. Do you like to shoot with a really wide lens? Do you like to shoot relatively long, tight focal lengths, things where you can kind of zero in on a subject's area and you could have the light closer? Because the ideal setting or the ideal placement of a softbox should be as close as possible. So you want the light to be soft. You want it to do what the softbox is supposed to do. And in the world of lighting, the size of the modifier in relationship to your subject is going to make that light harder or softer. So you get a big softbox, you want to try to keep it as close to your subject as possible. So if you're using a super wide lens, something that's going to show everything that's right around the edges, it's going to be kind of hard to put a softbox right here, right? Because now you're going to start to see the edges. Actually, I put that right in my light, so let me do it right here. So it's going to be very, very easy to start seeing the edges of this softbox with a super wide lens. Say if you're shooting like 35 millimeters or even wider than that. So this can start to creep into the image. If you don't really want to edit that kind of stuff out, which, especially if you're doing some environmental stuff, can be a little bit more tedious. If you're in a studio, you could probably quickly get rid of that if you needed to. But you have to think about how you like to shoot. So again, do you like to use wider lenses? Do you like to use tighter lenses? Something there to think about. You want to keep the light really, really close. So if you're going to use a wider lens, you're probably going to want to invest in a little bit larger softbox, something that you can back up and maintain the softness. Essentially, the reason that softboxes come in different sizes, one is for coverage, but it's also to maintain the softness as you start to back it up. So you have like a 2-foot octa here, but then you have like a 4-foot octa right back there. You're going to be able to get relatively the same softness out of both modifiers, just one of them is backed up. So as that softbox starts to back up in relationship to your subject, it's getting smaller. That's, again, one of the things you need to be thinking about whenever it comes to choosing size. Now, is there a right size or a wrong size? Not necessarily. It's just, again, how you like to shoot, what it is that, what focal lengths you like to work with and stuff like that. Are you an environmental shooter? Are you a studio shooter? And all that kind of good stuff. Do you have any questions or anything?
Let's see.
Only reason I asked is I saw you kind of like hone in on something. We good right now?
Oh no, we're good.
Cool,
Good.
perfect.
Hellos.
So, again, with a softbox, you want to try to keep it as close as possible, as big as possible. So, now, some people may not like to travel with something like a 4-foot octabox. So this is my favorite octabox that we make. The RFI 4-foot is, for me, one of the best sizes. Not too big, it's not too small. it gives a lot of really nice coverage. The light coming out of it is quite beautiful. But in order to travel with something like this, you're gonna have to set it up, you're gonna have to break it down. Is that something you wanna deal with? Whereas when you work with something like the Click Octa, I mean, setup and breakdown is, you know, like that, and then you have this really tiny footprint. So you can get some really, really great light out of something like the Click Octa. Again, probably gonna be harder to get like full body coverage out of something like that without backing it up. And at the point where you start kind of to back that up, you're gonna lose a little bit of the things that make a soft light. But there's always trade-offs. So hopefully that made some things a little clear on the size. Again, just to reiterate, if anyone's kind of just jumping in here, size, you want to try to keep your softbox as close to your subject as possible. You want the light to stay super duper soft, so you have to take in mind your focal lengths that you like to work with. So if you shoot really wide, you have to back that softbox up a little bit to get it out of the frame, and then you're gonna wanna go with the bigger softbox because of that, because you need to keep the size in relationship to your subject big. Cool. Now let's talk about shapes, because there's so many different shapes of softboxes. And just for the record, we're gonna talk about these, but we're gonna shoot with them too. So you can actually see what makes them look the way that they look. I'm gonna push them in really, really close so you can see how the softness changes and all that kind of fun stuff here. So, but let's talk about shapes. And since I already have the Octa right here, let's talk about why you would even want an octabox. So the cool thing about an octabox is it's gonna give you that more round, natural shape that you're used to seeing out in the world, in life. A lot of the things that produce a lot of, like the sun, for example, the one thing that's been baked into our minds of what light looks like for eons is the round shape of the sun, right? So this is going to complement that light pattern that our eyes are kind of always looking for, that flattering round light look. This is what you're gonna get out of an octabox. And that's kind of where it shines, is if you're trying to have light look and feel really natural, to have that nice round shape with no like defined edge as far as like the fall off on the sides. That's really where the octabox shines. Obviously I like to shoot with them way up. They don't really look that great way down, especially because your eye is looking for the light to look like what the light would be coming down from above, like this round light from above. So generally you want to go with an octa. So when the light's coming from below, so the reason I'm bringing this up is you have to also kind of think about like when you're walking around in life, right? So the light coming from above is this nice round all-encompassing light, but that's when you want to start thinking about things like square softboxes or strip boxes and stuff like that when you're lighting from underneath, because then if you think about the light coming down and hitting like a sidewalk, for example, that sidewalk is a square and it's broadcasting kind of that square or rectangular light back up towards your subject. So just things to think about like that. Generally, you don't see a lot of like round things from below bringing that light back up. So cool.
Kareem says, really appreciate all that you do for us, sir. I'm definitely here for the soft boxes and definitely looking forward to seeing the comparison between OCF, Beauty Dish, and the soft light reflector.
Sick, Kareem. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
And then we have, hey, Octa, it's just available in the RFI.
So no. So if you're going to the 4-foot size, the RFI Octa is the size that we have. So the 3-foot OCF softbox is also one of my favorites. I use that a lot, but I decided to go with the 4-foot Octa since I'm in the studio and I use it a lot in the studio anyway. And just to give a little bit more size difference in between the Octas between the 2-foot and the 4-foot. The 3-foot's probably, it's obviously right in between, but this hopefully will be a little bit more drastic of a difference for you to see. So that's why I went with the 4-foot. But no, you can get in the OCF line, you can get a 2-foot and a 3-foot. And the 3-foot I love. I use it all the time whenever I'm out on location. Cool. So let's talk about squares or rectangular softboxes. So rectangular softboxes are meant to mimic window light.
Hold on, let me get to a wider shot.
All good, yeah, right here. So they're meant to mimic window light. So hence, that's why they look like windows. So this is going to be one of those things that when you're trying to make the light look like it's coming from like a door or a window or something like that, this is the shape that you want to go with, obviously, because that's the shape that light's coming in. But this is going to have more defined edges as far as like the top edge, the side, and the bottom edges. It's going to have a more defined shape than something like the Octa is going to have, just because, again, you have double the edges with an Octa in that round shape. So really, really, really predominantly used for making your light look like it's being lit by a window or some natural light coming through a door frame or something like that.
Fernando wants to know if the Profoto B10X can handle the weight of the 4-foot RFI.
This is a B10X. So someone was asking if you can put the 4-foot on a B10X. This is a B10X on a 4-foot Octa on the B10. Works just fine. The kind of with the B10 stuff, there's I call it the rule of 4s, and that's another reason that I'm using all maximum 4-foot modifiers like today. So like if you look at this is the 3x4 RFI softbox, a 1x4 strip box, 4-foot Octa. 4-foot's the biggest size in one direction that you necessarily want to go with the B series stuff. So if you're using a B10 or a B10 Plus or a B10X Plus or whatever, just don't go larger than the 4-foot with the RFI range due to especially the 4x6 softbox, which is my favorite. My favorite that I use is my fill light that I use for everything. That sucker's heavy, so I always have like an extra little support for it. So cool. Also, another.
Chris from Uganda says thank you for suggesting the 5-foot Octa, and he uses it every day.
Oh, sick. Oh, hey, Chris. Gotcha. Is that Chris Austria?
Let's see. Oh, it won't tell me. It says Facebook user, but he says it's hey Chris.
Oh.
This is Chris from Uganda.
Oh, gotcha. What's up, Chris from Uganda? Solid name, my man.
Yeah.
If it's Chris Austria, what's up, dude? I know him personally. Let's see.
Nice.
I'm making sure.
Sorry, I'm looking at a blank screen right
Yep.
now. Chris will come back.
Yep, I'm coming right back. I'm just trying to make sure everything's out of the way. So one of the other things, again, you want to use this super close, and the bigger the better. And the closer that you actually have the square softbox to your subject, and actually the larger that you have that square, is going to look even more like that window light. So this 3x4 is going to do a really, really great job of it. Once you jump into something like the 4x6, it really, really, really starts to look like that light coming through a window. But one of the things you can do, so some people may say, I don't have a 4x6. I just have like a couple of different size softboxes that I keep. You can push them all together. You can take all the squares and you can just go, you can put like you could turn it like this way if you wanted to, 3-foot, and say I have a 3x4 and a 2x3. This is the 3-foot range, so you could have another 2-foot this way and 3-foot down this way. So you could take all of your square softboxes and you could push them together to make an even bigger light source, and that's going to give you even more, again, the look of a window or light coming through a door frame. But that's what the squares and the rectangles are for, just to kind of give you that look of light coming through some sort of opening. Cool.
Oh, Terry asks, he says, hey boss, no bigger than 4-foot for the B lights. Does this mean I shouldn't buy a B1 for a 5-foot Octa?
B1 or B10. So a B1 is made for, so the B1s have the full, so the reason.
Say your rule again.
Yeah.
I think
so,
he's looking to order.
Yeah, so it's the rule of 4s. Now, on the B10 line, don't go any bigger than a 4-foot, don't go any bigger than a 4-foot at the longest edge. So 4-foot Octa, 3x4 softbox, 1x4 strip box. It's just, it sometimes can be a little bit too much weight here on the point where the stand actually mounts to the light. Now, I will say this. Somebody in the Profoto user group did this really sick job, and I've been wanting to do it myself, where they took an RFI speedlight speed ring. So the RFI speedlight speed ring is stand mounted, so that the stand holds the softbox and not the light. So you can take the speedlight speed ring and you can take the flange. So this little thing, just so I can show you, you can take the flange out of the RFI speed ring, the normal Profoto RFI speed ring, and you can set this flange into the RFI speedlight speed ring flange. So you just unscrew it and then put this flange in there, and then you could take, trying to see if I have a B. Yeah, I have a B10 right here. Then, so somebody did this, like I said, and I haven't made one yet, but if you want to use a 5-foot octa.
Was it Faye?
I can't remember. But if you want to use a 5-foot octa, you can Frankenstein it into the way that now, since the stand is now supporting the 5-foot octa, you could just float a B10 inside of it like that. It was a brilliant idea by the person who did it. But again, just so you know what I'm talking about, you need 2 products in order to make this happen. You need the RFI Speedlight speed ring, and you need a Profoto RFI speed ring. And you take the flange out of the RFI speed ring, which is this thing, this little flange right here, bam, and then you put it inside that RFI Speedlight speed ring. And someone was using that with a 5-foot octa, and I thought it was pretty brilliant. So yeah, so you can do that if you wanted to. Just requires a little construction. Okay, cool. So now let's talk about strip lights. So strip lights are predominantly used as something that makes the light look like it's peeking through something, right? So it still has that rectangular shape that we were just talking about with something that you get from like a window light, whereas a strip box is going to give you, the same directionality of one light in one direction, but not as much coming from another direction, right? So now this is starting to look like maybe the door, the light coming through a door or something like that. So it just has this it does this really good job of highlighting edges because you have the light controlled this way, whereas this way is giving you a ton more coverage. So again, has that look of light peeking through the door. You'll see people a lot of the time use it for like a really cool edge lighting. You could do a really cool, like, you could have this as your main light with this edge light and then fill in your subject with a big modifier from the front and just, again, have this look like there's like light, like someone just opened a door and there's like just like light pouring through it or something like that. So really good for stuff like that. They also do a great job with lighting from underneath your subject. Again, like we were talking about with the octabox, light from above being round is much nicer. Whereas if you're going to light from below, having kind of this square rectangular shape also, again, to the eye feels a little bit more natural because of how light generally reflects up from, again, concrete or other things off of like shiny surfaces that are kind of around, that a lot of times are kind of square, especially if you think of like trucks. You all right?
Oh yeah. No, they're just questions all.
Oh, gotcha.
I just have them in like 3 places.
The way that you were looking, I was just making sure that like you weren't sick or something.
In multiple directions here.
Sick. But what's cool about going the direction of like a strip box or something like that from underneath is you have a lot more control of that light. So you can finesse how much light you want in or out of the or in or off of the subject's face, right? If you use something like a collapsible reflector, you can do that kind of, but you're always kind of walking this edge of like, do you have the reflector aimed the right way? Do you have it close enough? Do you have it far enough away? Whereas if you decide to go with like a strip box as your fill light from underneath, it's incredibly easy to aim the light right where you want it. You can see it. And then you have the ability of feathering that power back a little bit if you need for it to be a little more subtle, or if you want it to kind of punch in a little bit more, you can bump that power up. And that the softness always stays the same, whereas in order to do that with a reflector, you're always kind of lifting it or lowering it down and changing that size. So really cool modifier. Also, strip boxes do a really good job too if you have 2 of them on a white background. So I have these set up just so you can kind of see it. But if you take a couple of strip boxes, you have a nice, if you think about like this nice band of light that comes across here, and does a really good job of lighting a white backdrop. So enough yapping. Now that you kind of understand why the sizes and the shapes are the way that they are, let's take some photos so you can actually see that stuff. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take the 2-foot click softbox with an A2 inside of it, and we're going to shoot that relatively close to Kate. Try to keep it as close to her as I can, but out of the frame. And then we're going to bring the 4-foot octa into it, do the exact same thing, and we can see how that light's going to change both on Kate. I want you to look for shadows. I want you to look for the difference in shadows being feathered. I want you to look at the light that's going to hit the background. And I want you to kind of just look at the coverage and everything like that, and just see how all this stuff is affected. So very cool stuff. Let's move this big square out of the way for a second. Camera settings.
The rule of fours has gotten a lot of comments on it.
What happened?
No, you just.
Oh, the rule of fours.
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. Can I use the RFI modifier with the B10X Plus lamps?
Oh yeah, lights. Yeah. So
lights.
yeah, so RFI is fine. So again, just like Kate was saying, rule of fours. So nothing bigger than 4 foot on the longest edge. So 4 foot octa, 3x4 RFI softbox, 1x4 RFI strip box. Take it with the B10 stuff. 4 is the limit, right? Unless you decide to do the cool Frankenstein thing that I was talking about earlier, then Frankenstein away.
Does it? Does that trick work with the D1 500?
So a D1, you don't have to worry about the rule of fours. So let me just explain this really fast. So the only thing that makes the B10 need to have a little bit lighter modifiers is the 2-piece setup. So we went with a 2-piece light stand adapter for it. So you could, if you needed to fit it in somewhere a little more compact, you could unscrew it and kind of just set the light into like a lens pocket of your bag. Whereas something like the B1, the D1, the D holds the stand adapter to the light is a unibody. So this can handle, I put my 4x6 on this thing all the time. This is actually this is the D2, the light that I put the 4x6 on every single time. So if you have a D or B1 or B1X, you don't have to worry about it. You can go as big as we make. Cool, so let's do this. Camera settings wise, I have f8 2/50th of a second, ISO 160. I'm shooting it with a 50mm lens. In the Fuji world, it's a 35mm, but for all you full frame aficionados, it's a 50mm. So, and cool, I've got my Connect Pro ripping right here. Let's make sure let's turn off that one.
Making sure we're okay here.
All good?
A little bit of jumping. Let me know if you guys are having trouble.
Cool.
Y'all, and we'll, it looks good.
Cool, let's jump up in here.
We got everybody.
If it messes up, if something's wrong with the stream, we'll just, I'll re-upload the recording of it, and it should be super clean.
Yeah, hold on, let me put this here.
Cool. And so again, the first light that we're going with is the 2-foot click softbox octa. So we're gonna get in there. Let's get right in the spot on the rug. I'm gonna get my camera in the right spot. We have it on a tripod so I can kind of lock this off into place. And then I'm going to bring this 2-foot octa in. I'm gonna look at my screen, and that's right there's, with the framing that I have, that's about as close as I can get it.
I can touch it with my fingers, so.
And that would help. Yeah, so let's go there. So let's see if I can creep it back in a little bit. So again, you want to try to keep it as close as possible. This, I didn't put it on a rolling stand for some reason, because I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. So here we go. So here's the 2-foot octa. Ready to go, Kate? 3, 2, 1. Lovely. 2-foot octa, great shot. Stay right there. Let's get the 4-foot octa. Oop. After I smack my camera. Let's roll this bad boy into place. I did put this one on wheels because and I still have to pick it up. I still have to pick it up though, so it's not that genius. It's mostly because of the cables. So cool. So the 4-foot octa, still aimed down. We're gonna try to start creeping this in to the same spot. And again, we're just looking at the screen to make sure that the light's not creeping into the shot. There it is. That's kind of, and that's roughly the same spot, honestly.
Same spot, yeah.
So cool. So let's turn that light on. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Lovely. Very, very different looking light. Wow. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So cool. So let's throw, since we're already snapping shots, let's go ahead and throw the 3x4 on here. Let's take this 4-foot octa off. They can see the shots too. So that last shot that you're seeing on the screen right now, that was the 4-foot octa. Let's go put the 3x4 softbox on here. For anyone who has trouble putting the soft boxes on your light, I didn't do it this time, but you can use gravity. So what you would do is you would just take your light.
I don't know if I can see it from here.
I'll show them in just a second. I'll move my butt. So what you should do, if you're having problems putting your softbox on your light, just point your light up and just set your softbox on the top of it. So it's a fun little tip. Use like gravity and do it for you. So let's get this locked into place. Take this up here. The cool thing about the square softboxes is, or at least as far as like putting them into place, is because the edge is flat, you can kind of don't have to worry about like these extra edges jutting off into the shot. So I think that's actually probably even closer than the other ones were to you, right?
A little bit.
So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Lovely. Cool, and then let's do the same thing with the strip box. I'm gonna move this one out of the way and just use the strip box that's there, just so we can kind of see how the light behaves on the different light setups. Let's go with the strip box. Let's take care of that light, turn this light on. And then again, just we wanna get as close as we can, just out of frame. Something that I always like to recommend for strip boxes, soft boxes, do it for all soft boxes, but definitely for strip boxes. If you're using this as your main light, try to get the light, make sure that you try to keep that light above the subject's nose or eye or something like that. Just something about lighting it from like here, just the way the light goes through the softbox doesn't look as good. So I always try to keep it eye level or above. So something to remember for using strip boxes. So let's bring this around here. Again, just kind of push it in, make sure I have the light creeping in a little bit. There we go. Oh, there we go. 3, 2, 1. Lovely. Very, very cool stuff. So there's the 3 soft boxes. Let's go in and look at them a lot closer and see, what kind of details that we can pick apart and look at some of this fun stuff. So let's pull up these 4 shots here. Bop, bop, bop. So actually, you know what? Before we even do that, let's talk about the size differences. So this here is the shot with the 2-foot octa. Am I in the...
Yeah, we look like we're back. I think it skipped for a second, but I think it caught up. So
oh, did it get jumpy?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But I think we're good now.
Okay. Cool. I'm looking for my hands dancing around. What do you got?
I got lots of questions.
Okay.
Do you have questions on your screen?
I don't have any questions pulled up because I have
I'll just holler them out.
All right. Let's jump over to the review view.
Got it.
Cool. Sick. So these, they look a little more contrasty to you than they look to me. They're not. It's just something about the system makes it kind of contrasty. But first and foremost, let's go to like a nose shadow. Sorry for the zoom in on the nose, Kate. But you can look how much more the shadow here is feathered off, how that line of demarcation is very, very, very tiny. Whereas if you start to look here with the 2-foot octa, that line of demarcation a little more prominent. You can see that dark line and then a little bit more of a feather. So already clearly off the jump, way softer. The catch light is not too much different. It looks maybe a little more prominent here just because the light can taper here with the 4-foot, but it's very, very soft light. Also, the coverage that you're gonna get from a bigger light modifier like this, if you look kind of at the background and how even that is all the way around, whereas here, it starts to fall off a little bit more. And you can also tell here too, look at like the arms here on Kate down lower. So you're getting a lot more even coverage with the modifier than you are with a 2-foot. You can see it starts to fall off quite a bit down here towards the bottom of the image, whereas like the jacket is much more evenly lit. So the size makes a big difference. Does it make such a difference that everyone's going to pay attention to it? I mean, I don't think people are going to pay attention to it that much, but you just have to know what you're getting by changing up the sizes and keeping that softbox as big as you can keep it in relation to your subject. And again, walking that line with, do you want to take that softbox with you, or do you want to open that softbox up and use it for what you're doing? So, but big softbox, beautiful stuff. Now let's just talk shapes now. So with let's just talk strip box here, rectangular softbox here. So you can already tell if you just look at the arm right here compared to the rectangle here, you can tell that light is really working in that sliver of that strip box. So it's keeping the light off of, or it's starting the light is starting to feather off much faster towards the edges here and putting that light right where you want it. It's kind of one of the things that makes the strip box so cool, is you have just a lot more controllability as to where it goes, and you can keep light off of things a little bit better. And then if you were to pair it with something like, I think it's inside this bag. If you pair it with, is it in this bag? Or is it in, I know that I accidentally shoved it in the wrong bag once, so it might be. But something like a strip mask, I did shove it in the wrong bag. I think it's, weirdly enough, I think I put it in my 3-foot octa bag because I'm a hot mess. But let's just double check. I just want to see if it's here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I was right, it is here. I knew I put it in there. So what you could do is, so the 4-foot OCF octa and the 1x3 OCF strip and the 1x4 OCF strip now come with the strip mask. So what's cool is you still have that softness, that length in the strip, but you can control that edge even more by putting the strip mask on it, right? So that's kind of cool too. So that's what makes strip boxes so neat, is you're able to maintain that softness, but you also have a lot more edge control. Cool stuff.
The biggest softbox for the A2 is a 2-foot.
Biggest softbox for the A2, if you're talking about rectangular, right now is the 2-foot Click softbox octa. In the next few weeks, the OCF2 adapter will be out, and then you'll be able to do all the OCF softboxes. So the 2x3 square, the 1.3x1.3 square, and then the you'll have like the 1x3 and the 1x4 strip and stuff like that, 3-foot octa. So all that good stuff. So then that comes out in the next few weeks. I think it comes out here in September. So you should have it soon. But currently, in its current form with the A2, the 2-foot Click octa is the only thing that you can buy and have now. So, but really beautiful stuff. You can see that the square, because it's able to point that light a little bit more, because it really only has this edge and this edge, as far as like your top and bottom and your sides. You're able to kind of point that light, get less light on the background. So they do a really, really good job, again, of controlling that light, whereas that octa is really trying to throw light everywhere. That's where things like your grids are going to come in really, really handy, which we're gonna talk about softbox grids on another day. But really, really neat stuff.
HH is asking, other than the softboxes, were there other lights being used to light the subject?
No. So so someone was asking, was I using any other lights to light the subject? No. So I clearly have these video lights on for this. I try to set, in the studio, I try to have my camera set to block those out. So that's why a lot of times you'll always hear me saying I'm shooting f8, 1/250th of a second, and ISO 160, and those settings delete these lights from my image. So the only thing that you see in the shots that I took are the softboxes. Anything else? We good?
I'll holler them out.
Cool. But again, understanding why a certain softbox is a certain thing and why you'd want to choose it is really, really good stuff to know. You can make a really, really beautiful shot with a 2-foot octabox, and it still looks nice and soft. But knowing the difference between how the shadows are going to fall on your I'm trying to see if I can get these relatively even for you really fast. But knowing how those shadows are going to fall between a smaller 2-foot softbox, even though it is softer than the flash head it would be, jumping to something like a 4-foot where the shadows really start to kind of disappear from the scene. You're getting a little more coverage all around and stuff like that. And then understanding that, hey, you know, this nice round shape, I mean, if you kind of look at this, it's this nice, beautiful round coverage that you're getting from that octabox. Whereas you start kind of getting into the squares, you can see that that light's doing a better job of pointing right at Kate, especially with the strip box where you had even less edge towards the sides, just mostly up and down as far as the softness comes. So just understanding that that's going to keep that light pointed a little bit more towards your subject, again, mimicking more of a window style light, because if you think about like a wall and a window, or probably want to go wide for this, but like if I'm standing, yeah, if I'm standing here next to this window, I know it's kind of hard to see, go to that shot.
Yep, sure.
Perfect. So I'm standing next here to this window. Obviously the wall portion here is going to block out some of the light, whereas you know, this square here is going to kind of keep the light either right on me and then not let the light go other directions. So things to think about. So I'm trying to figure out practical ways of showing you guys this stuff.
Louise wants to know what speed ring can I use? Oh wait, is that right? Yes. What speed ring can I use with the RFI soft rectangular 1.3?
When it comes to speed rings, stick with the same speed ring for the same softbox. So if you're using an RFI softbox, get the RFI speed ring. If you're using an OCF softbox, get the OCF speed ring. That is of the utmost importance. The rod length is not the same between the RFI and the OCF. So if you took an OCF softbox and you put it into an RFI speed ring, chances that you would actually rip the fabric of the softbox are pretty high. So we did that on purpose. We made it so you shouldn't be able to put that speed ring and that light together like that. So OCF speed ring, OCF softbox, RFI speed ring, RFI softbox, and keep it that way.
See an example of the strip light.
Of the strip. Do you want to see? Yeah, with it. Yeah, that's not
right?
That's not a bad idea. Here, let's throw the strip light on there. So the cool thing, we make these masks for lots of softboxes. So say if you bought like an RFI 3x4 like that we've been doing, you can get a strip mask for it and knock it down to like a 2x3. So it's a really inexpensive way of having different size softboxes as opposed to buying a whole bunch of different softboxes. So look into strip masks too. And we definitely offer them for a lot of stuff. So now, just so you can kind of see this on the front of the softbox, I'll flip it around for you to see.
Sorry.
Cool. Is the side shots up?
Yeah.
So there, so you can see how that. Here, let me turn that on. So that's what the strip mask does. It takes it down to that size. So let's do this. Cool. Let me move this out of the way. Take a tiny step back.
Here.
Yeah, like right there.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see my framing of you because I definitely moved my camera. Let's see. Let's go. I think I'm back here a little bit. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the shot relatively close. I think that's probably good. So cool. So again, I like to keep this above eye line. So let's go up. Perfect. And then I'm going to start using my screen to creep the shot in. Actually, here, let's do this because it's going to infect the shot. Just put the Velcro on. So use this to kind of get the, all right, so there we go. Perfect. Here we go. 3. Oh, let's turn that back on. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Lovely. So you'll be able to see here right off the jump too how much the background light changed. So let's do strip mask versus no strip mask. So cool. Thanks for the suggestion. I was talking about a strip mask. I didn't even think to shoot it. So cool. So here is your strip mask versus no strip mask. First and foremost, look at the sharp line here on her arm that her body is now broadcasting that isn't here, right? Look how much, let's try to go to a point where you can kind of see, but like, look right here. See how much more feathered that edge is as opposed to going to, oh, I'm not even in the shot. I'm such a dork. So there we go. But look at, I mean, that's drastic. So already you're cutting down how much light is actually hitting your subject and how much light is actually wrapping. But also, look at the background. You're now controlling even more light off of the background, putting it right where you want it. And so then if we want to throw all three up there, so you can see between something like a larger 3x4 down to a 1x4 down to a 1x4 with a strip mask on it, which technically makes it like, I believe this strip mask is about 3 inches maybe 4 inches in width. So it's a pretty thin strip of light in one direction while still maintaining the length in the other direction. So it does a pretty fantastic job of keeping the light right where you want it. Let's go to another thing I want to talk about. Let's talk about the nose shadow here. So let's zoom in. So check out the shadow on the nose. I mean, even between here, super soft, tiny little line of demarcation. And then right here, it starts to become a little more contrasty, again, because there's not as much light to wrap. And then, I mean, look at this. Boom, you have a much more defined nose line. But look down here at the shadow underneath the chin. Pretty much the exact same all the way across the board, right? So it's kind of softer in one direction than it is the other direction. Let's see if I can pull all these up so you can kind of see that stuff. So there we go. But in the direction of the length, you're keeping that nice soft line that you're getting from that 4 foot range. So really cool stuff. I was talking to my buddy Cliff about this. He said this might confuse some people, but if you think about it, I'm just gonna say it anyway because I want to. But a strip box. Do what I want. Yeah, but he'll call me later and be like, "What the heck, man?" But the strip box, and you're seeing it in the shadows, but especially with the strip mask. Now the light coming out this direction is harder than the light coming out this direction, right? So that's why that works the way that it does. Cool. I think that was some fun information for the day. I think we covered some cool stuff.
By the way, that was Chris Austria.
It was Chris Austria. What's up, dude?
Go.
Cool.
Okay.
Chris, good to hear from you, man. Sick. So hopefully that was some good information. Hopefully that gave you a good idea on things to think about when you're trying to figure out what softbox you want to either purchase or use for a shoot if you already have some softboxes. Again, if you're trying to make a big, huge wall of light like we were talking about with the windows, don't be afraid to push your lights together. You might, some people would be like, oh, but you know, there might be like a black line in the shot. That's cool. Windows have all kinds of little lines inside of them. So it's probably just gonna play as something like that, or it could look like a row of windows and then just the frame right in between them. So don't be afraid to jam your softboxes together to kind of get that big, huge, soft light look that kind of, again, with the squares, really starts to accentuate the idea that it's more of a window light. Again, your octas are going to be more for kind of making that natural looking sun style light that you're used to seeing, kind of that all-encompassing big round light from above. And then your strip lights are going to kind of give you that look of like light peeking through something that gives you this really awesome edge highlight while also kind of maintaining some edginess in one direction, which is kind of really, really cool. Again, using your squares and your strips as lights from beneath, really, really good way of using those because one, again, you can control their direction. It's easier to actually point the light right where you want it. And two, you can control their intensity. So you have more control over bringing the power up or down without changing the distance of the modifier to your subject, right? Softboxes in general, size-wise, the bigger you can go, the better. The closest you can get, the better. Keep in mind what kind of camera lens you like to shoot, what your favorite focal lengths are. Keep in mind, do you take full body shots? Are you more of a headshot photographer? You can get the light in even closer with something like that too. So just think about all that stuff. But at the end of the day, light as close as you can get it to your subject just out of the frame. So after that, have fun with it. Experiment with it, move your light around, decide whether you like this light pattern or that light pattern, and just have a good time. In the meantime, this was super fun. If you want to jump into if you have any more questions about any of this stuff, you can jump into one of our one-on-ones with either myself or Anders or Gibbe. You can just, if you're on prophoto.com, there should be a link in the description. We've probably also put a link in the description on Facebook and YouTube. So all that good stuff should be there. In the meantime, have an awesome, awesome rest of your week. We'll see you next time. Peace out.